Three Keller Williams from three very different markets asking three great questions to one rock star agent about how they study the millionaire real estate agent and how they use the lessons learned from this book,
aka the Red Book,
to do the one thing that guarantees them a life by design and not just by default.
These are the RedTalks with Aaron
and Luke
and Patrice.
Our guest this week is Seychelle Van Poole with the Van Poole Properties Group, the leading real estate group in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area. So Seychelle, along with her mom Barbara, run this full-service team of awesome agents and support personnel. And along the way, they've become the #1 go-to local area experts for buyers, sellers, investors, interior design, and even short sales and foreclosures. A true all-rounder. So Seychelle is a team leader for Van Poole Properties and is also a savvy real estate investor who rolls her sleeves up and gets stuck into all the remodeling as well. So a lot to talk with Seychelle today, but normally I would say ladies first, but actually I've got a question for you. I love your name. Tell me what's the story behind your gorgeous name?
Thank you. You know what? I had parents that were hippies in the 70s and they sold everything. My dad actually was managing one of the casino clubs on the Strip in Vegas, and they sold everything and backpacked around the world for about 18 months. And I was supposed to be a boy named Austin, and I came. I had a blue room, blue baby clothes, blue everything, and they had like no backup name. And so when I came, they were like, "Oh no, what are we gonna name you?" So I got named after their favorite place that they visited, which was the Seychelles when they were traveling. So that was how I got the name.
My son is called Austin, and when I was in America, most people would say, "Oh, from Austin, Texas," and we'd be like,
right.
"No, from Austin, the rugby player in the UK." So,
yes. Well, Austin's a pretty good name. And, nowadays, I think it could even fly as a girl's name, too. But I'll take Seychelle, too. I have people, so it's pretty awesome.
That's great.
I love it. Okay, so we have 3 simple questions for you around 3 key things: mindset, productivity, and giving back.
Love it.
As you know, we want to keep this short and sweet, and we want to make sure this is as impactful, fun, and engaging as possible for our audience out there. So we'll just spend a few minutes on each discussing each of the questions. Is that okay with you?
Sounds awesome.
Perfect. So let's crack on with the show, as Luke likes to say. And, Luke, why don't you start us off with our first question?
Thank you. So, Seychelle, you're obviously a true multipreneur. So how do you start your week or day with the right mindset to set you up to handle so many different things that you do throughout the day?
I think it comes down to you do the hard things first. And so in the morning, it's like first thing in the morning, right, is a huge glass of water, then it's exercise, then it's making sure I've got my priorities set for the day. And, these days, our daughter's been doing virtual school now for a year, starting this next month. And so really, we have to be very organized because we're juggling, my husband's an entrepreneur as well. So we're juggling, homeschooling basically, for a 6-year-old along with running businesses. And so I think it comes down to clarity around what you need to get done for the day and understanding that you've got to give yourself some grace if some of the things that are on that second tier priority don't get done. It's okay to move those to the next day and just know that that's going to happen. But right now, I will say it's very hard on the, if I'm just being real, it's really hard on the personal and business juggling, because I feel like when you have like literally 10 feet of separation between your house and your work and your play and your food and everything, it's hard, right? You guys understand, like it's hard to just turn it off at all times. So I'm really working on putting boundaries back on my work so that I can have some boundaries on the personal side too.
Yeah, it's super tough. I totally agree. And we're all going through this journey together, right?
Yeah.
The process of homeschooling, and these are not normal times.
No, they're
any stretch of the imagination. This is the most unnormal that it could ever be. And so we need to love ourselves a little.
It is, and I think it's also like really working to find the gifts in this time. And like an example I could give you of that is like we own rental properties here in Dallas, and one of my team members has decided to move from Austin, Texas, the place, back up to Dallas and couldn't find what she was looking for. And so last year, we decided to remodel one of our duplexes and sell it to her. And then that actually opened up an opportunity for us to go up to Northern Michigan for a couple of months, buy a lake house up there, and spend time remodeling it up there where we're going to have a place for our family. In normal times, I never could have worked remotely for that long. And in normal times, we probably never would have made that move. And so, I think it's also really looking for what are the opportunities and the gifts right now to do things that maybe you never had the courage or the thought to do otherwise. So that's been really cool.
Yeah,
I love
what
that.
I heard the other day, which is fun, is an acronym for crisis, which is
Yeah.
circumstances resulting in a shift in strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I
totally
definitely
I haven't
find
heard
that
that one. I like that.
that is good. There's so many more changes. I feel like we talk to people all the time, and so many people are making changes in their business and their lives that they just didn't really think they had the power or the control for. And you shared a little bit before that you started your career, at a challenging time. Will you share a little bit about that as well and how that's actually helped your business?
Yeah, Barb, aka Mom, who originally started our team. It sounds weird yelling like "Mom" across the office these days. So Barb started our company actually on her birthday, which was September 11th, and she started on September 11th, 2001. That was our first day in real estate. We actually started with Keller Williams, and she thought she was coming in having been PTA presidents, business owner before, like all of the things like socially and business wise to set her up for an easy sphere of influence business. And just like we've dealt with this last year, we dealt with in 2006 through 2010. And uncertain times, people actually are afraid to make decisions and they're afraid to leap off. And so Barb went from what she thought was going to be a very heavily sphere-based launch of a business into having to cold call, door knock, do open houses, everything she swore she never would do to get our business off the ground. And then I came in 04 in a very hot buyer's market and was a buyer's agent, or a very hot seller's market and was a buyer's agent. And then had the brilliant idea with 3 years in 07 to move from a buyer's agent to a listing agent within a month of the market crashing and becoming a buyer's market when I became a listing agent. So my first 6 years in the business, I was never on the winning side, if you will, of a deal. I didn't know what it felt like to win. I just thought you slogged every day. I just lost every day and had to set expectations for the first 6 or 7 years of my career because I never was on the winning side. But I think that knowing that what it looks like to succeed in a challenging market or being on the other side of the fence when it's tough, all of a sudden makes it when it's a strong market or you are on the winning side that much more fun and that much easier.
I love that. It's like you've been swimming upstream for so long with a rope down around your waist. When they finally snip it, when the market is good, you're like, this is the easiest thing ever. Oh my gosh.
You honestly, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop the whole time because you haven't felt like that, for more than maybe 20 days in your whole career. So you just kind of keep looking over your shoulder, like something surely has to happen. But I think it makes you appreciate the good times just as much as it makes you feel confidence when the times get tough. And I think anyone starting their career today and growing their career is in that same advantage spot because you're going to know what it's like to deal with tumultuous, uncertain, challenging times, and you're going to be set up for success when the times are easier.
Yeah,
Did you
resilience,
feel like
right?
You knew that it was a tough market when you started, or that it was a changing market? Did you have that presence of mind to know that it was, obviously we all knew it was a remarkable time, but did you know how that was affecting the real estate market, or was it just, as far as you said, that was just business?
I think it's a little bit of both, honestly, Luke. I think I had the gift of being in Gary's room at a young age, and Gary, Keller is, he looks 5, 10, 15 years into the future and is always watching the economics and forecasting. And so I think I had a pretty good awareness, even though I may not have had personal business experience at that point to back me up with, perspective. I was kind of sitting on Gary's shoulders, understanding that it was unique. But I think perspective is reality. It's whatever you are doing, wherever you are, is the market that you're in, and you just figure out how to succeed in that scenario. And I think if you can do that and have the grit to do that, you're going to succeed however it happens.
As we say when we talk about the shift, right? When we use that book in some of our trainings, that There's no good market or bad market. There's the market. The market.
It just is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
someone's
exactly
always
right.
buying and someone's always selling. I always think we solve problems for a living, right? When we got into this business, that's just what we do. So the more problems, honestly, the more valuable I am, right? If someone doesn't, if there's not a challenge, why do they need us, right?
That's exactly right.
We're a luxury. So,
and I think markets like these really give us an opportunity to be a consultant and not a salesperson. And that's the position I would always rather be in, as a consultant. So for me, I actually love times like this because it allows us to do what we're meant to do instead of something that's just like, oh, I opened up my email and a deal fell in my lap today. So I would way rather feel like I'm adding value and bringing something to the table.
I love that. I like that. Purpose.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm going to dive into question number 2. So I had the immense pleasure of seeing you at Family Reunion, your class at social media in 2020. And I will never forget that Seychelle loves tacos, partially because I do too, but also because you're really good at what you do. But what it taught me was that you can make lead generation look different and look fun. And I just love that. Fun to build a business. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. I was thinking about this when you asked this question, because I think there's 2 components of it. I think the habits that you build to build success look very similar when you look at successful people's habits, right? I think it's mastering your morning. It's knowing that you need to get time on task and experience at a certain level of, for us in our business in real estate, right? Lead generation. And however that happens, there are simple habits that you can build that will build success. But that also doesn't mean that you can't have fun and pick the ways in which you build those habits that they don't have to be boring. They don't have to be, just because this person over here loves to cold call doesn't mean that my success has to look like that. And so I spent probably my first 5 or 7 years chasing what I thought everybody else was doing to be successful, right? I was comparing their journey to mine, and I felt like I needed to emulate that in order to be successful. And after I had our daughter in 2014, I really realized that my journey doesn't have to be everybody else's journey. And in fact, when you have a kid, your time goes from like, I have all the time in the world. I can actually do like 3 full-time jobs because I have all the time, and then all of a sudden you have this tiny human that like needs all of your time, and you don't have the luxury of having all the time in the world anymore. And so I had to get really creative with my lead generation, with being purposeful, of having to rebuild, friend groups that with other people that had kids, and how do you do that in a community? And so I think, the best thing that I did at that point was give myself some permission to all of a sudden start creating my own journey, and looking at the habits still need to look the same, but how I accomplish them may be different. And it was a really freeing part. And I actually feel like I'm so much more comfortable in my own skin, having given myself permission to be on my own journey and be okay with that. And other people may agree or disagree with the way I've done it, but that's okay, because it's not their life and they don't have to live it that way. And I think for all of us out there, right, giving yourself permission to live the life you want. And you got into real estate likely because you wanted to be a business owner, and you probably wanted freedom. So, being able to have those things and give yourself permission to live the life you want to live and to do it the way you can do it to be successful, I think is a really powerful thing.
That's amazing. And I often say to the guys that I work with, I run a team, right? So everybody has their own different personalities, and everyone's got their own way of doing it. And what I'm always really kind of encouraging them is, look, find out where you operate at your highest level most easily, and do that. Yeah. Because whatever your secret sauce is around this, that's your own authentic thing.
Right.
That's why people are going to connect with you. That's why you're going to find your tribe. That's why you're going to be able to build relationships. So lean into that. So if you are, like you said, the cold calling machine, then do that, double down.
Then do it.
But if you're the taco loving person, then, do that, whatever it takes.
Then I'm going to lead generate with tacos. No, I mean, I say that like in jest. Erin is so right. I do love tacos. They're amazing. I live in the like taco capital of Texas. But I will say the one thing I will give as advice, if you are going to do your own thing, is pick one thing a year that you're really going to get good at, and like double down on that. And so, for example, When our daughter was younger, the first thing that I needed to do was, most of our friends hadn't had kids yet. And so it was like, I've got to build, like, I kind of have to mom date, and I've got to build like a group of parents that I like, that our kids can get along, right? And that we are similar in mindset. And it took, like 200 parent dates to find 4 or 5 groups that we really liked. But every one of those 200, whether they came into our inner circle or not, became my new database of sphere of influence around parent dating. And then the next year, I layered on top of that, joining an entrepreneurial group for business owners outside of real estate, right? And I really focused in heavily on that group over the next 18 months, and entrenched myself and really focused in on, how do I build quality relationships with this group of people. However it is that you're doing it, I would just say, don't try to grape shot and do all things all at once, but instead really focus in on layering one at a time, and be real patient with that layering process, and really getting the most out of each thing that you're doing, so that you don't wake up and feel like your head's cut off and you're running around. And instead that you're really getting the best out of what you can with each piece that you're adding in your business.
That's so cool. Obviously you really seem to do a very good job of finding out the problem, and then or the obstacle, I should say. I don't like to call it that, right? The challenge of whatever that is, and then being super purposeful and figuring out, okay, now I'm going to find the solution and I'm going to focus on that. And I think it's really neat. And of course, and I loved what you said earlier, because that brings me to my question, which is giving back, right? So I'm a fan of the show. When it comes to giving back, you're a co-founder of Amplify. And you almost sounded like you were on the show a minute ago, really talking about like building your life and what you want. And there's a lot of that on the show for those of you guys that haven't watched it. It's amazing. But please tell us about that. And then we definitely want to learn like why you created it and where that came from, right?
Yeah, it's Luke. So this gets back to men and sports for a second. I think men naturally do an amazing job of creating an echo chamber. And I think it's created from when you play on sports, right? And, when guys play basketball or rugby or soccer, football, whichever sport you want it to be, I think men naturally do a really good job of pumping each other up and creating an echo chamber. And what we noticed is, when we were in mastermind rooms, men naturally take the sports game and they put it into the business world almost subconsciously. And what we noticed was that, one guy would say something, and then another person in the room would say, "Oh, I want to echo what so-and-so said. That was really, really amazing." And then the third person would say, "Yeah, I totally agree with what those other 2 people said." And by the time 3 people have validated an idea, it doesn't matter how good or bad the idea is, it is now valid. Right? It is now a thing. And what I started to notice, and what the other, now 11 of us at Amplify started to notice in that room, was that women naturally will actually take a step back. And so we'll naturally say, "Oh, no, it's okay. You go ahead. You can talk." Or, "Oh, no, it's okay. Your idea can be the one that goes to the front." And what we realized by doing that is that there was a lack of female voices in leadership. There was a lack of female voices on stage. There was a lack of female voices in the room. And that if we wanted to change that, we actually had to emulate what men naturally do so well. And that is they amplify each other. And so
you give me goosebumps. I'm sorry. That was really powerful.
Yeah, like Erin, Patrice, I don't know if you guys noticed this too, but I think it's a natural 100%. Thing when women are socially raised to be more nurturing. It almost goes against our grain to be more aggressive and assertive. I've even had KPAs that I've verified for Keller Williams, and the word aggressive will show up, and men are like, "Yeah, I am." And women will be like, no, I wouldn't use that word. I wouldn't use that word. And it's like, no, aggressive, it can be a great thing when channeled in a positive way. And so we created Amplify really to help amplify the voices and lives of women in business around the world. And our mission is to create a tribe of women that can unconditionally support each other through the highs and the lows, and that you can actually have conversations around wealth building, right? And, marriage and business and health and spirituality, or whatever those things are that you need help and support in, and that you're going to bring other people with you. And until we really dug in on these retreats that we've been doing now for 6 years, we really, I think, underestimated of what the power of having, right, what men do so well with a sports team, or what we've created with our tribes, right, is having this group of people that are really unconditionally supporting and encouraging you, and pushing you forward. And it's been really powerful. So that, the Amplify event is coming up this September. We'll have it again in San Antonio this year. And then that's what spun off for us to work with Keller Williams in creating the podcast of Empire Building. And it's really just all about, how can we help people build big businesses, but even more importantly, build a bigger life, right? We're in business for a reason. So how can we make sure your life that you're building supports that?
And what a great opportunity to share this with our nascent, newer UK KW market as well, because here's an observation that I have, right? And is that, having worked in the States with Keller Williams for 10 plus years, my observation was that the women were the ones who were leading these amazing teams and so robust in their businesses, and just so many inspiring leaders in women. And coming back to the UK, and I don't think it's unfair of me to say this, because I've heard our, the big guys in the company saying this frequently, guys and women, by the way. But they're saying that the trouble is in the UK that it's traditionally quite a male-oriented business, and the women that are leaders in our business are kind of not given the same platforms and the same respect and the same. And so it's my observation anyway from where I stand is that in the US, so many of those best teams are female-driven teams and women-driven teams, because there's that nurture aspect, and that nurture aspect is almost like the secret sauce that you guys have in spades that maybe the men don't have in certain relationships to buying and selling homes and all that stuff. So it's fascinating to me.
I think it's interesting when you look at there are 1.2 million real estate agents in the United States. And when you look at that, it's a female dominated industry, but when you look at the top 250, it's male dominated.
Oh yeah.
And
for now,
I was gonna say, we're on a mission to change that. And if you look at it, even in the last 6 years, since we've really been focusing heavily on getting people's voices out there in supporting, and this is not against men, I think men are amazing. We're looking to emulate what you guys do naturally. It is to get more female voices represented so that women can see that you can have a family, you can be a business owner, you can live the life that you want to live unapologetically, and it doesn't have to necessarily look like everybody else's, and it's going to be awesome. And, I think Gary Keller has been an amazing leader because he has championed women for a long time. And you look at Mo Anderson, you look at Mary Tennant, you look at some of the original women that helps this company grow, but it took us until 2020 to get our first all-female panel up on the big stage for our big convention. The company's been around since 79.
But what a great time to be doing this.
That's a long time.
The balance of everything is so out of whack right now.
Yeah.
And now we're all in this soup together and realizing, how to build a family and maintain a home and run a business, and everyone working from the confines of your home on Zoom. I mean, it's so bonkers.
It is.
So it's, everyone gets to learn in this together. But yeah, what an awesome opportunity for you.
Yeah, I will say as a woman, if I can share, Luke, is you see that again, and I'm not going to get into girl stuff, and I'm totally in every power, but as a man, I think you naturally automatically see it that way. For women, the word that you said earlier, Seychelle, and you say a lot on your podcast, it's giving that permission, right? I've always been a very driven person, and I've held that back my entire life because that's what I was conditioned to do. And so and Luke, by the way, champion Luke, because he's got 3 strong women here, right? And 2 women that he chose as partners. So great job. And that doesn't always happen. And it really does take things like COVID and September 11th and all of these challenges that some of us go, you know what? No one's standing up. I will raise my hand, and it is time to get out there, right? And so we're lucky to have these opportunities, and we are lucky to have these companies and these platforms. And your group really is so powerful. I got goosebumps again because I really do feel it, and it is we need it more now than ever. Sorry.
Yeah. I agree.
Well,
oh, go ahead, Erin.
No, please.
I was just going to say, I completely agree with Patrice in that if we don't have men like Luke championing and supporting and pushing it forward, right, and casting the vision, absolutely huge heart for that. You lack the opportunity, right? We lack the opportunity that we need. And so it takes all of us supporting and growing towards that big business and big life, whether you're a man or a woman. It just happens to be my experience as female. So that's my perspective. But
and your mom
regardless,
as founding it with the company, right? So it was always, I mean, I got to think that Barbara must have been a cheerleader for you in that sense, in terms of running and building a team during that remarkable time in America, in world history, but in America, such a incredibly tough time to build something.
You know, they always say too, it takes 3 generations to really see a systemic change. And so you look at like the generation before me with, you know, like my mom and, you know, the amazing people that we had pushing society forward in the 60s and 70s. And then you see our generation now pushing it in the 2000s, you know, and we're going to have the children behind us pushing it one more step. Imagine what all of society is going to look like when children who've been raised during COVID, right, and are seeing these boundaries blurred in a great way of like family and work and integration and all of these different things. Imagine what their perspective is going to be like when they're growing up and getting older, on how much more that's going to push us forward towards, you know, helping everybody grow. So it's kind of cool to get to see that from a kid's perspective right now.
Yeah. And the bar just gets raised, right? There's just, competition is better for everyone.
It is. It absolutely is.
Sorry, Erin, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, no, that's okay. What I was going to say earlier, which ties into this very well, is just, I do think that it takes time, right? The generations, because I don't believe change comes unless you want it to come from inside. I don't think you can put change on anyone, but I think it's a matter of seeing things and then seeing more people stand up and seeing more people stand up and then being like, oh, wait a second, I want to be like that. I want to be like that. And then making the internal change. Because I think, like you said, of course, somebody had to make the initial change, but seeing people like you, Seychelle, standing up and doing this is so much easier for other people to be like, oh, no, wait, I can do all of that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's great.
And I think all of us that started Amplify kept waiting for someone else to do it. And we finally, we quietly were thinking that. And all of a sudden we got in a room together and very quickly realized, no, actually, we have to do it. Like, no one's going to do this for us. And so that's such a good point, Erin. It has to start with you, and you have to choose the life that you want to live and be unapologetic about it and go for it. And that's where that permission is so important, because we only get, potentially one of these. So, you got to choose what you want. I will say, you guys were talking about the multipreneur thing. I wanted to circle back on one thing that, I have found to be really helpful. And that is, like, we've built businesses that support each other in real estate. I've had ventures outside of real estate before and found that investing in what I don't know is not nearly as fruitful as investing in what I do know. And so we've built, our residential rental properties and flipping businesses and remodeling and, a mortgage partnership or insurance partnerships, all that funnel off that same client base. And I would say in the multipreneur space, that's been really successful for us. But even then, in those roles, it all comes down to 3 key things. It comes down to the right opportunity at the right time with the right people. And I found if I skip any one of those 3, I kick myself. And so I can't sacrifice. I've always found now that even if it's right opportunity, right time, but it's not the right partner, we pay for it dearly. And so that's been a huge lesson. If I can save anybody from years of pain, that is an awesome rule of thumb. If you're looking at expanding your business into additional maybe disciplines or avenues, those 3 key things have been the keys to our success, on our successes, or if we skip one of those, our failures. So I figured I would share
through that kind of filter.
We do. It's right opportunity, right time, right person. And I'll give you a terrible example. Like one that we failed on was we had the right opportunity, right time, wrong person. We invested in a company that did cricket flour. And it was like, all the rage in the mid, 2010, 2011. And a lot of companies were coming up, right? So we thought right opportunity, but the timing was wrong. The global economy was not ready for cricket flour here in the United States with high protein. And then we thought we had the right partner, but it turns out that partner is a great business, creative, but not a great CEO. And so you get some of those mixed up, and all of a sudden we're outside of our discipline where none of us can jump in and understand the successes of it. And it fails, right? At the same time, we had right opportunity, right time, right partner, and we invested in an insurance company. And that's been phenomenal because all three of those things lined up, and we did it 3 years later than we wanted to do it, but waiting for that right person and training them up the way we wanted to, or having them come in with existing experience and really doing it right, made all the difference in the world. And so I would say, just not sacrificing one of those three can either make you hundreds of thousands or millions, or cost you. So you just got to be careful with really evaluating those three. And for us, we now have a pretty hard, fast rule of, if we don't know the discipline well enough ourselves to know the successes and failures and what they look like, then we probably won't invest in it.
And as we
and
wrap this
really
up,
quick,
yeah, go on.
if you didn't write that down, I don't know if people can see us all like writing in our notes. Make sure you wrote down what she said.
Yeah. And it sounds so simple, right? It is simple to remember. However, you really do have to pay attention. You have to question it. Like, what am I pretending to ignore? Is this really the right, right? It's so simple. And yet you really do need to make sure that you're paying such attention. That's the beauty of it. I love this.
And to your first point about getting involved in stuff that and staying in your lane, right? I mean, Warren Buffett always, that's the secret to his success, is he'll only ever kind of invest in something that he truly understands and probably uses every day.
And it doesn't mean that Cricket Flower can't be wildly successful. It just might mean that my ability to vet that opportunity or company. I mean, we've had now we've had a couple of pretty good little dive bombs that we've done in business, enough to really realize, okay, like outside of a certain lane, like I don't have the metrics to understand what success looks like at a deep level. And that also means that I'm going to have blind spots to not know where the failures are going to be, because I don't know it intimately enough. And so that's not to say there aren't people. I was laughing this morning, just thinking about, like, there are people that are amazing with startups, and like you look at all the people that have come out of eBay and Google that, like, that's what they do, and they do startups and they know how to do those really well. I'm just better understanding real estate and real estate related investments, and I know how to measure those really well. So that's the lane I've discovered I got to stay in.
Well, and if you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to everything else, right? So if you're focusing on something that you think, oh yeah, this sounds awesome, but if it's not your thing, you really are missing the opportunities that would have been probably a better fit, right?
Yeah, because that money could have been deployed, and time could have been deployed into something else that probably would have made us a lot more money or opportunity, right? Totally agree with that.
Let me ask as a closing question then. So it sounds like your giving back piece now is a huge part of what you do. So in terms of like your brain space and how much time you give to the giving back piece, is that kind of what you're doing more of now, or are you still, day to day with the Van Poole group, or how do you get that? That's
a great question. We went, last January, I probably would have had a very different answer for you than I have today. Last year I had built up our team to really be pretty self-sustaining, and I had some leadership failures of my own that caused us to have some turnover beginning of last year. And I've learned so much. Like, I'm a completely different leader today than I was last January. But that caused turnover, which means that we have some amazing people that are in year one with us. And that means that you do a lot more involvement in the business than you do when you have people that are in 5, 7, and 12 years. Right. So, I would say I'm still very engaged and involved in our business on a daily basis, because that's what the role requires. And I probably have about 25% of my time blocked out for teaching, giving back, working on Amplify or the podcast or something that's helping to push other people forward too.
And a great thing to remember as well is, and this is, going back to the Red Book, right? The MREA is that this is your GPS. This is the kind of foundation, so that when you go off in different directions or explore new areas or expand in different areas, you can always fall back on.
That's right.
Really solid.
Yeah. So I went from like a level 6 to a level 4 if you're in the Red Book, right? Sure. That's about it. Got knocked down a couple pegs. But it's been amazing. And because of the foundation we built with utilizing a lot of the tools and systems in Red Book, our business actually really didn't falter. It was just more the energy and time and commitment that we had to put into it that made a difference. And that's okay too. That's part of the journey. And when you fail forward, and you learn and you grow and you get up and you do it again. So
we hear those success stories oftentimes on the the family reunion stage or some of these other podcasts, right? Where people really do have to scale back, the slow down to speed up, you have to make changes, and then you come back twice as strong, and didn't realize what a blessing it is a little bit later. And I just want to say, I know we're wrapping up, but you said one other thing that I think everyone should write down, and especially if you're thinking of doing a team in leadership, that's what the role requires, right? I think that, and you knowing that at a high level and just owning that and just going, okay, this was my life yesterday, and now the role requires something different. I think that's just such a great sentence. So I wrote that one down too.
Thank you. I did have a good 12 hours in between those days where I screamed a lot. I'm not going to lie.
We all have those
days. Be my life, right?
Oh my God. I thought humans.
And then I woke up and realized that was my life and that was what it needed. So that's what we did. But I would be lying if I said it was great and just yay.
Of course, you're like, I'm a human for a minute.
We have covered a lot in this episode of the Red Talk today, ladies. And
I love
I'm
it.
extremely honored and proud to be surrounded by 3 fierce and wonderful women.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Seychelle. This was amazing, truly.
Y'all, you guys are so good.
Thank you so much.
I love watching these. So thank you for having me on today because I really enjoy them.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Amazing. Bye, guys.
Thanks.